have seen piles of snow like this at the front of their neighborhood this morning when they left for work, if they did go to work. The Judicial Center that's right across the street here has a busy day on tap tomorrow.
You think you're deceiving your people that voted for you by not getting your training? No comment?
No comment.
You just tell him what you want him to do.
Put the knife down.
Close the f***ing door. Get the.
Raleigh Sizemore, 210016.
It's 18 minutes of audio recording. In that time, Raleigh Sizemore would make his case for release from state prison. In April of this year, he had served less than 3 years of his 10-year sentence for manufacturing methamphetamine and criminal mischief.
You've been on probation 1 time, and you've been on parole 2 times.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, what I get from that is you're probably not a good candidate for parole. What would you say to that?
I think that I can make better decisions this time.
We played the recording for Eric Ellis, whose brother Daniel was shot and killed earlier this month. Sizemore is charged in his murder 6 months after he was paroled.
I'd like to ask those parole board members why.
We tried to ask the parole board that question, but both the Department of Corrections and the state parole board denied our request for an on-camera interview. But we did obtain the recording from that April parole board hearing and these records from the administrative office of the courts. This is Sizemore's criminal history in Kentucky. 32 pages of arrests, charges, and jail time going all the way back to 1997 when he was 16. He served time in a state prison 5 times. His latest indictment says he's had 12 previous felonies. The charge of being a first-degree persistent felony offender has been dismissed twice since 2011.
Earlier this week, a Madison County grand jury returned an indictment against Sizemore, charging him with Ellis's shooting, an attempted robbery, and a domestic occurrence that happened 2 days before that November 4th shooting.
Why does he get a second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh chance?
I look at your criminal history and I think about why you're in prison, and when you have been arrested so many times, it's not even funny. I mean, just arrest after arrest after arrest after arrest.
I'm the worst criminal in the world. It seems like everything I do, I get caught for.
It's almost like he's laughing in the face of our system. Like, why is he not in prison?
I'm done with this life. Everything I do, I get caught for. And I try to work and I try to do everything I'm supposed to, and I just slip back in every time.
We are going to recommend you for parole. Please, 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 Mr. Sizemore, for your sake, you know, let's really put your heart into it this time.
Fayette Commonwealth's attorney Ray Larson can't speak to what happened with Sizemore, but he's been dealing with repeat offenders for decades.
Does that burn you up?
Sure, it burns me up. And what do you think? I sit over here and I used to have hair.
He says it goes back to House Bill 463.
Our legislature is too busy trying to keep people out of prison.
The law that passed in 2011 is meant to reduce penalties for some drug crimes and get defendants into treatment instead of prison.
I call it the catch and release law. Catch and release, soft on crime, criminal friendly law whose sole goal is to keep people out of custody, including the repeat offenders.
In the past 5 years, the Kentucky Department of Corrections has paroled more than half, 54% of offenders before their sentence was complete.
I mean, how do we make it better? We don't have the answers. We just have the...
You have the result.
We have the result of someone who lost their life because of the failure of the system. And we have to live with it, but we ask that our politicians, our state government, to do something about it.
We are live in Richmond now. Officer Ellis's car still sits here partially covered in black cloth. We are in front of the Richmond Police Department. Let's take a moment and take a look at the timeline from Sizemore's release from prison to his arrest for Officer Ellis's murder. He was granted parole in April of this year. By June, he was indicted on a charge of first-degree wanton endangerment. On October 26, his probation officer tried to contact him at his home.
From the front of this Breathitt County building, there's not much to see. An interesting looking piece of property with a sign that paint has altered over time. The story we found was in back. We showed up on Tuesday morning, a day we knew Suboxone was being prescribed. We got there at 8:45. It opened at 9. There were dozens of people waiting, car tags from Owsley, Knott, Perry, and Breathitt County. At 9 on the dot, the doors opened and we watched 29 people file in. Another dozen or so would trickle in, so we went in too.
We saw at least 30 just this morning on one day. Is that normal?
Well, we only do clinics 2 days a week.
Dr. Pablo Merced is a family doctor and runs the St. John Newman's Medical Clinic. Police say he's been lawfully prescribing Suboxone for a little more than a year. In that time, police have responded to numerous calls to Merced's office. Dr. Merced says he prescribes Suboxone 2 days a week, including the day we showed up.
It just, thorn in our side. It's become a haven for activity that's, not conducive to a good society in our community.
Why don't you come in?
Oh, well, thanks.
Dr. Merced led us through a full waiting room to his office.
So what do you want to know?
I want to know how it works. How do these clinics work? There's, a lot of people, police included, are upset because there's so many people outside in the mornings, and there have been altercations outside, even a shooting, I believe.
Yeah. Well, the shooting doesn't have anything to do with Suboxone. They have this domestic problem.
But do you like this happening at your physician's clinic?
This is not the clinic, it's outside. We can't help it.
It's on your property.
We cannot control what people do.
It's not our job to be a security guard for a doctor's office.
Chief Ken Spicer is dealing with a problem not unlike other cities and counties in Kentucky.
It's just becoming an epidemic.
The issue surrounds this, a treatment medication to help people stop their opiate addiction. The brand name is Suboxone, but it's really buprenorphine. It is a Schedule III narcotic, which is regulated and lawful to obtain with a prescription.
We had the pill mills when OxyContin was so popular. You'd have people coming from different states, different counties, get there an hour before the clinic opened, long lines, people selling out in the parking lots, and that's what we're seeing with Suboxone.
So it's being abused.
Being abused.
Dan Smoot with HIDA, high-intensity drug trafficking area, says Suboxone is not only sometimes abused by patients, but doctors as well. Doctors under federal regulation can only have 100 Suboxone patients. Although it can be covered by Medicaid, many patients pay cash. We're told by doctors that a patient may pay anywhere from $200 to $500 a month for Suboxone treatment, and the prescription can range from $200 to $400 a month depending on the dosage.
You can become a millionaire almost instantly. There's so much money in these pills.
Are we headed back to pill mills?
That's the concern, that the buprenorphine clinics are just becoming the pill mills of a few years ago.
But there's a difference, says Dr. Mark Jurish, president-elect of the Kentucky Society of Addiction Medicine. He says the medicine isn't as highly abusable as other opiates because of its chemical makeup.
It does a lot of people a lot of good. It just needs to be in hands of people who can manage this disease well.
Is it a red flag to you to see a line outside of a Suboxone clinic?
Yes. I would not expect to see that.
For his part, Dr. Merced follows regulations like any physician's office should. He has an active medical license since 1986 and no disciplinary action, according to the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure. And he has not been charged with any crimes. The only complaint is concern from neighbors and police about the activity that has occurred outside his clinic.
Do you understand where people come from, though, where they say, it looks bad. Why are these people lined up in the mornings?
They don't, because they don't understand. They see them as drug addicts.
Judy K. Spencer used to be a drug addict. She says she's overdosed 8 times.
This is the only time I really wanted it to help,
She says Dr. Merced and Suboxone saved her.
If it wasn't for this, I mean, I don't know what I would do. I would probably do it.
So she lines up weekly to get a treatment drug meant to help, but even Dr. Merced admits can hurt.
Are all of the patients that are coming in here doing it the right way?
Hard to say. The only thing we can do is try to monitor them as closely as we can.